Italia!
Evening, morning, afternoon. Hey, how's it going, everyone? It's Shane from Milanisti 360 podcast, coming to you from beautiful evening time Malaga, with my co-hosts Lab Gorilla over in the UK, and then Nico, currently based in Mexico. Also, though, here's the key piece, and we're absolutely delighted and so stoked that he's decided to join us for this pod. We have Max Lombardia. So, at Lombardia Max is the handle on, I guess, X, formerly Twitter. One very rare, sensible voice in the Milan fan base. So, I guess, yeah, we're absolutely delighted to have you here, Max. Thanks so much for coming on, man. It means a lot to us. Really appreciate it. So, I guess, yeah, getting into it, let me start though. So, John, how was your week? Let's cut over afterwards.
Yeah, been a very interesting week. I was in Italy again. I think I arrived on Tuesday. I went to Bologna and Rimini. And just for anybody who wants to go and watch Bologna play, I thought I'd point something else because I've learned this at my own expense, guys. At Bologna Airport, they've got some fancy monorail that connects the airport to the city center, right, to the central station. And they charge something like 25 euros return per person. If there's more than two of you traveling, get a bloody taxi. I spoke to a local on the flight back. I had the guy sitting next to me, a Bologna fan, and he was telling me basically that monorail is a disaster that's been breaking down for years. And now the council are just trying to make money back. So they're ripping off tourists. So it's just like, the boats in Venice and so on. Get yourself a taxi if there's more than two of you, all right? I thought I'd get that message out because it might help people. Because Bologna is a beautiful place, but really, that's a bit of a scam. Yeah. Nico, how about you?
It was a good week. Celebrated my birthday, my 47th birthday this week. I had way too much cake, way too many beers, way too much food. So I'm paying the price today.
And Max, how's your week been?
Yeah, it's been really good, thank you. First of all, thank you for the lovely introduction. I do appreciate it. I'll try my best, so it's great that someone recognises that. Yeah, I've had one of those weeks, work week, full of work, lots of shifts, lots of shift patterns, and then muddled all in with my children, who are both quite young, so very busy, dropping off, picking up, all that sort of thing. So,
Yeah.
That's it. But I guess we were treated to a couple of shit shows this week. So it's quite nice. Before we talk about today's shit show, do you want to talk about the shit show that happened on Thursday? No? Do you just
Yeah,
want to
I'd love
recap that trauma?
I'd love to. I have some notes for that game. A few.
All right.
God. Okay.
First of all, I guess so. Let's cut over to Nico first because Nico is very good when it comes to staying factual as well when it comes to the games. And so, Nico,
Yeah.
what's your thoughts on the game, man?
Yeah, I've been doing a lot better taking notes the last few games. Mostly, well, as you know, first half. We looked pretty good actually. First half, not too shabby. We looked okay. A little bit slow offensively. Looked a little bit out of sync. However, in about 15 minutes into the game, Sharawi had a really good opportunity to score. He was all alone on the top of the box, something that we saw today versus Swallow. And Mike, and Benny was slow coming back. Obviously, he's not 100%. And Mike made a really good save and a good play from Gabi as well. But again, that didn't take too long because I believe in the What minute? Oh, here we go. When was the goal scored again? 49th minute? Or was it the first or second half was the goal scored? Oh, there we go. 17 minute. 17 minutes into the game, that was when Roma scored their goal, right? Came off a header off another set piece play, which we've been awful for the last, 2 seasons now. And I'll be getting to that more later on during the show. But that's all I have. I really don't want to get too much into it because it's kind of depressing.
Fair point. I mean, the one thing that I noticed about it, like, it's like we didn't even show up. I don't know what that says about Roma, but honestly, guys, we were so ineffectual absolutely everywhere. I mean, it was amazing to see it. If we were playing against like a good, high quality opposition, we would have been so wrecked. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's one to forget, but I still think we're going to do it in the second round, in the second
Oh,
leg.
Shane, I'd like to add, if anybody caught our pre-game show, a couple hours before the game kicked off, Shane and I host that. We went over the stats of Roma since they've been taken over from Mancini, and they've been on a good run, right, Shane? From what we
De
saw.
Rossi.
Yeah, De Rossi. I'm sorry, yeah, De Rossi.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's a different Roma team, and obviously that's all I have to say for now.
All right. So I guess over to you, John.
Well, I mean, I missed it. I was in Bologna Airport. You guys remember? I called in on your
Oh,
pre-game
yeah.
show
You
and I
did.
sang "Happy Birthday" to Nico, and I was like, I'm going to miss the entire. My flight was literally leaving at the time that kickoff happened, and instead I was sitting on tarmac with my Wi-Fi on, like literally with data on, still picking up the match, and I just, we said that Rossi is going to cause a different problem to our squad, and that's why the match is interesting. If it was Mourinho, we kind of could predict exactly what was going to happen. But I've got to say, is it a surprise? No, it's not a huge surprise. Obviously, I did the purely pre and post game comments, and just listening to them and him admitting that Al Sharawi on the right wing caught him out. He had not prepared for that, and openly saying that a lot of the press was saying to him, for 75 minutes, Milan seemed to have been surprised. But you guys will know, and Max, I know that you mentioned this in your podcast because I'm a subscriber to your podcast. Which everyone who's listening to this, please subscribe to Max's podcast. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it is.
It's really, really good
Thank you.
opinions.
Thank you very much.
And I'd say that, the day before, there was all this huge pro Pioli comments about, 7 straight wins, wonderful football, everything's going really well. How do you compare yourself to Real Madrid and Man City's game, which was, by the way, an absolute banger of a match, and the goals were fantastic. But the comments, we're not so far away because we were in the semi-final of the Champions League last year. What did you need more than this Roma game to kind of bring you back down to earth and kind of say, hey guys, we're not at that level. Wake the hell up. You're not, you can't stand there and say seriously that you've got the capability to put together a game of that quality, because you really don't. And yeah, and Benacer being asked questions like how many Milan players would fit into that Real Madrid or Man City squad, and Benacer saying pretty much all of us, me included, could fit into that. And you kind of think, listen, you're just saying nice things because you're in front of the press, right? But no, come on. I just wish someone was a little bit more honest with us. I think we all know that we're not at that level. The game, I caught the highlights, and Roma did a good job. Obviously, that corner was bad, and Pioli did correctly say that Tani Abraham, when he knocked that ball forward to Lukaku, he did look to be using his hand as opposed to have headed the ball forward to Lukaku to initiate the movement. But, at the end of the day, that just led to a corner. You still had to defend the corner, and I'm sure Nico will talk about the corner. But but it wasn't good, right? And the fact that we didn't respond, I think personally, I have to try and be positive and think that we still have enough. Looking at that Chukwueze chance where he took out all of those players and Giroud missed that opportunity was really frustrating. But we should still have enough to be able to turn around the game. I don't want to sit there thinking that we're going to go to Roma and lie down again and get caught out again like that. But Max, please tell us what you thought of it.
I thought this game was really clear in terms of what preparation had happened and what hadn't. So for me, De Rossi had clearly done his homework. He'd watched Milan over and over again, and he'd set his team up tactically to be able to deal with it. I feel like I've watched this game loads of times in the last 2 years. It felt like a repeat of what I've seen before in other games. We were counting on individual brilliance, which is what we do, and unfortunately it didn't pay off this time, and therefore we weren't really able to get anything out of the game, or what we were looking for anyway, for me. I think it was really clear that once Leao and Teo Hernandez were shut out, thanks to De Rossi's game plan, we really didn't look like we were going to score at any point. For me, the changes were too late. They took too long to come on. I'm not sure why it took 78 minutes to put two attacking players on. I was a little bit confused. I thought that needed to happen earlier. I liked that Adli came on in the 60th, but I thought, having watched that first half, for me personally, I couldn't understand why no changes had happened. I couldn't see anything for me that looked great to think, let's go out again exactly how we are. So for me, it was a strange game. Tactically, I don't think the starting 11 was miles away from what it should have been. I just didn't see any in-game management to make me think that we would react to what was going on in front of us. It took too long. It felt really slow. Leao coming off early in the 78th minute, for me, I think that was fine. I don't think he was having a good game, so I couldn't see a problem with that. I just wish we'd been a bit quicker to react to De Rossi's game plan. It seemed to take an hour, which I think is too long. You could say that this game was on a pivotal edge. If Giroud puts that in the back of the net, we might be having a slightly different conversation about the result. But for me, the way that we played says it all. Lots of sideways passing, lots of playing it safe, unable to break the lines, nothing really going forward until Adli came on. So that's how I saw the game. I saw it as an opportunity lost. And I left thinking, oh, thank God it was only 1-0. And if I'm thinking, thank God it was only 1-0, I think that says it all.
Max, I have a question for you. In terms of the intensity, right, that's something we've been lacking. I'm sure you noticed the same thing. We had zero intensity for that whole game, especially Leao. There was a time where he just gave up on a play. Did you notice the same thing during that match?
Yeah, absolutely. We didn't want it. They wanted it. We didn't want it. The fire wasn't there from individuals, from the leaders, and just in general. It took too long to get going. I agree completely. Leao, for all the great things that he does, he didn't have a good game. It's absolutely fine to say that and call it out. You're not a Leao hater if you think he's had one bad game after 7 or so. But yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more, Nico. He wasn't there. He wasn't at the races.
But are you guys surprised that De Rossi really, really brought the fire? Since becoming manager, that's how he was as a player.
Correct.
So what's not surprising about the result for me is I agree with Max with what he said, especially about Pioli and kind of maybe lagging a bit when it comes to making potentially game-making decisions in terms of the personnel on the pitch. The very concerning thing though is that De Rossi is a relatively green manager, and to say that he's basically outdone Pioli, who's been a manager for at least 20 years, 25 years,
at least.
And the answer is that and this again is the problem. I think we do depend very heavily, too much so, on moments of individual brilliance from Teo or Leao or we see in Pulisic. But when we don't get them, we're lost. There's not enough leadership on this team. We're filled full of kids, and it's just very disappointing. And this is the result of it. It's hard it's hard to kind of see a game like that. Especially, I know it's not the biggest European trophy, but like to say that I mean, what could happen? Like we could have a relatively easy route to a trophy here, right? Touch wood. Um, I mean, Atlanta, crushed Liverpool, so they might be out. I'd see us beating Atlanta before I see us beating Liverpool. You know, I mean, we could have an easy, well, relatively easier run here at some silverware for the season. It's just the players don't care; they didn't show up. I
I
think
mean,
that says that.
Liverpool, Shane, have had a shocking week. 3-0 loss at home to Atalanta, and now today they lost to Crystal Palace. So,
Well, looking at the stats of those two games, they've had more possession. I think like 70% of the possession of both those games. They've had more shots on goals, but the amount of shots they've missed have been just like you said, shocking. The numbers are insane. I can't imagine, like they're not clinical at all. Liverpool, which is, listen, a lot of people would say as well. I'm sure, I don't know if Max watches any EPL games there,
Yeah.
but what we've noticed is we talked about it before. EPL, like teams like Liverpool, are very open. They play a very open game, just like we do, right? Very little midfield presence defensively, but they score a ton of goals. Liverpool, they had been depending on outscoring their opponents the whole season, but now it seems like they're not even scoring goals. So that once that that part of your team is lacking, your game, it goes out the window. You need to play defensively, and that's something we depend on too. We depending on outscoring opponents as well this season, and it works sometimes, and obviously, and other times it doesn't at all.
So Max, I had a listen. I think as I came back from Italy, had a listen to your podcast for that quick podcast you did as a review of the game.
Yeah.
And you correctly pointed out, and we all assumed. We did the maths. Actually, we have our own WhatsApp group on Milanista 360, and we posted some stuff. And we were doing the maths regarding the Milan derby, right?
Yeah.
And we realized very quickly that today's game could almost be a throwaway because mathematically it doesn't really affect things too much. We're still going to have to go and play against Inter and pull out a result to prevent them from being Serie A champions. So our correct expectation and what Pioli had indicated to the press yesterday was that he was going to go with an experimental side, and we were looking at betting forecasts and so on, and we were seeing Okafor starting. The Italian press were reporting Okafor was going to start, Florenzi was going to start. I'm trying to remember, Musa was going to start, and then Terracciano was going to start as well. And yes, Magnan was going to be rested. As the game turns out, Pioli caught everyone out, and he didn't seem to want to throw away the game. But the frustration, and I'm going to go to one of the listeners' questions, because we've got Christian Pasmino. Hi, Christian. We've got Nathan online. We've also got Gio following us online. And Christian asked the correct question, which is, we seem to have a really exciting youth program, but we're not seeing them play. And what better time than today to have put those kids on the pitch? Would that not have made the game a bit more exciting, and maybe for us to accept the loss as long as you experimented with youth like Simic, like so many other players I could name? What was your opinion on the lineup, first of all, Max?
Yeah, it's confusing, isn't it? Because like you said, mathematically, it doesn't really matter. We know we need to rest to get ready for what is the most important game, which is the Europa League one. And we chose to do a strange mix of starting players and bench players. And you're right. Why would you not give the youth a chance? If you come out of that game with a 3-0 loss, but you've played all the kids, they've had a run around, they've shown what they can and can't do, you've kind of made an assessment of where they're at. Okay, fine. You're going to get the people complaining. You always will. But at least you can say, right, we chalked it off. Let's move on. Instead, what you get is this strange mix of still looking really bad, conceding too many goals, still fighting and using energy that you didn't really need to use. And you come away with a point. Okay, so we were 5 points ahead of Juve. We're now 6. We're miles behind Inter. We're still miles behind Inter. So it doesn't really make sense for me as well. If I just add what I like when I see these teams heavily rotated, for me it's an indication of how the team is actually set up to play. So for me, a coach instills a system of play, and then the players play it, right? And then you have the individual brilliance that kicks in and out. You should be able to rotate and not lose your style of play. You might not get the individual brilliance that you have from a Leao or from a Teo or whatever, but you should still have an organised starting formation that can play the way that you want them to play. What scares me or what worries me when we do these massive rotations is the fact that we just look completely different. We look completely different. We can't defend all of a sudden. We're counter-attacked even worse than we are when we're full strength. Our attack is all over the place. We're sideways passing again. So for me, yeah, you're absolutely right. You want to see the youth integrated better. And I think actually we've got some really good players, youth-wise, who are already showing they can do it. So this stubbornness to not play them, I don't really understand it. Is he worried about his job? Is he worried that he needs to win every game? I don't know. I don't know, to be honest with you, because some games indicate that he couldn't care less, and then some games indicate that he cares a lot. So, yeah, it's a strange one. I agree with you. Youth should have played. A loss is fine if youth play. Instead, we've wasted so much energy on some of the starters. Giroud's come on, really. Leao's played most of the game again. It doesn't make sense, does it? But yeah, absolutely. Play the youth, 100%, especially when it doesn't matter.
Max, I have a couple of points that you mentioned, a couple of things that you just talked about. First, in terms of the style of play, yeah, obviously, yes, regardless of who's playing out there on the team, we should see that same style of play regardless of the starters. However, I think it comes down to training. That I think that falls on the how they prepare during the week for the game. Where we have no insight on that. Obviously, we don't know what Peel is doing during training sessions, how he's building that team chemistry. So that's a big issue that something we're not don't have any visibility into. And second thing I wanted to ask you is the players, the Primavera players that you've seen play this season, Simic, Zaroli, that's played in the Primavera games. I don't think he's played any. Has he started for us this year at all, or played any minutes?
He has played some minutes. He has played some minutes. Yeah.
So in those limited games, what do you think about those two players going forward with our team?
Zaroli looks like the potential CDM for 5 or 6 years ahead of time. He looks like, physically in stature, he's good in the air with the ball. He's got some really good control considering his height as well, which is quite rare to find sometimes on some of these taller players. So he looks like a really good prospect, and he looks like he needs some more time to actually experience the pressure of playing first team football. Simic to me looks like a grown man. He looks way older than what he is. He looks disciplined on the ball. He is going to make some mistakes. He's at centre back and he's young, so we do need to be prepared for that. But he again looks like a player that you could just put on the pitch. You could just give him a chance. When he came on against Monza, when he absolutely had to come on against Monza, I remember him scoring a goal and keeping a clean sheet, if I'm not wrong.
Correct.
So, yeah, they've got it. I'd also add players like Jimenez as well. He looks really good. Again, a bit of first team football would probably do him good as Theo's vice. And then you've got, I always get it wrong between Sia and Dia, but I think it's Sia. He looks sharp as well, attacking midfielder in the Primavera. So there are some players who naturally look like they'd be a good fit for first team football. And this is where the under-23s hopefully will make a difference and give them a chance to jump into first team, not so coldly, if that makes sense. But yeah, for me, perfectly, these are the situations they need to play. Also, if you're winning 3-0 and you've got the game under wraps, why not play them? They don't seem to come on either. They seem to sit on the bench. Poor Okafor must be fuming. He's a proper player and he's not getting any minutes. So, yeah, I mean that's my take on the youth. I know lots of people have very different opinions and be well more informed than I am, but just from what I've seen, those are the sorts of things that I would sort of bring to the table.
Yeah, I think. Go ahead.
Just a quick point about the Sassuolo game in particular. right? So we did see Florenzi, God bless his soul, because I quite like the player, but he's just, he's too old now. But we seen him got destroyed and wrecked for pace, right? And I think was that the first goal, I believe. So the Pinamonte goal, if it wasn't, it was the second. Basically, he got completely just
That was
ran.
the second goal. Yeah, the
The
second
second
one.
goal. So he got completely ran past, and then as a result of that, then obviously, they were 2-0 up. Sassuolo were, but what would stop Pioli bringing on Terracciano instead? You know what I mean? Like, because if you know that the player is getting beaten on pace, surely Terracciano can't be any slower than Florenzi is. If not, he'll be more nimble and fast. So even keeping the Primavera to one side, it's like even the younger players that were purposely bought in by management aren't getting heavily utilized unless Pioli trusts them. But to trust them, that usually takes like a key player getting completely injured and ran into the ground, and next thing it's when there's no choice. Okay, now we'll play the youth player, right?
So,
Which is
Shane, honestly, I looked at the Gazzetta on Saturday because they're usually a very good indicator because they are actually talking to the reporters that are there on the training ground, right? And Terracciano was indicated as starting instead of Theo. Okay. So something happened overnight. And Max pointed this out as well. And we noticed during the game, very strange kind of hybrid lineup that he has set up. He threw away all the defenders, all the defensive lineup, and then he went, you know what? I am going to put Ruben Loftus Cheek. I am going to put Theo. I am going to put Leao. It was like, why are you doing this? I don't understand. It's like, are you trying to win the game? If you're trying to win the game against an opponent that is fighting for their lives, for their survival, then you don't go in half-hearted. And so you remember during the game, we were thinking, is he worried about his job? Is that what this is? Because I noticed in the stands, the cameras panned out, and Furlani and Ibra were there watching, looking really cheesed off when we were 2-0 down. And
but
uh, yeah, go on, Shane.
sorry, so this speaks to an important point that Max made just a bit earlier about it's like Pioli. There's no plan. It's literally just depend on individual brilliance. So what Pioli's going to do is he's going to look at it. He's going to go right. If I don't have Teo and if I don't have Leao on the left hand side, I don't really have any creativity coming from anywhere.
Yes, I agree with you, Shane. The question I have is, if you're gonna go and throw the game, as in lose the game, then lose the game and put out players that are going to give our players rest. Because remember, the next two fixtures are Roma and Inter. They're not just two tiny games that are coming up. What is done today is literally said, I'm going to go half-assed. And then during the game, at halftime, we were thinking, I'm now curious that Pioli is going to try and win this game. So he's actually going to bring in strength and strength and strength. And what did he do? He did exactly that, Shane. He brought on all the starters. By the end,
John, we've seen
everyone.
that. We've seen that before. It's not the first time that
But it's
Pioli's
like,
panicked.
why do you think this is what I don't understand is why do you think he has gone to try and rescue the game on a fixture that meant absolutely nothing? Do you think he's done it because he's afraid of his job?
Possibly.
Because I
It
can't
makes
see a
no
reason.
sense.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. Absolutely none. Because it's not like we're chasing a league position and he's screwed up rotations again. It makes no sense at all. Absolutely zero.
Very strange. So I was listening to Radio Rossonera after the game, guys, and they were saying people that were pitch side, they were saying that Leao was, really exhausted by the end of it because he was on it. He was on it the whole game. He was running hard the whole game. And, I know Nathan, who's watching right now, he was saying, I'd like Leao to be on it all the time or more frequently against the big teams and not just against the small teams. But he looked like he had a bee in his bonnet to kind of prove a point. Uh, but I don't understand it. I genuinely don't understand it. Okay, we got away with the 3-3. I bet on Pinamonte to score a goal, so good thing to do. But I'll be honest, guys, I don't have any clue as to what the pressure was to make Pioli put on the strongest squad possible by the end of the match, knowing that next Thursday we have Roma away, and next Monday night we have Inter to win the Scudetto. We have to beat them because of the draw today, according to Uncle Sharma, who, you know, thank you for joining us in the last few weeks, but he posted a quick comment to say thank you Sassuolo, because it means that now if Inter can draw against Milan, they still win the Scudetto. Now I don't know about the maths. I hope someone can correct that. But if he's right, that means we've literally just given Inter two ways to win the Scudetto against us on the day, which would be such a humiliation personally.
And imagine Hakan celebrating in front of the curva after that game. This.
Sometimes I think,
he'd get a suspension, wouldn't he, if he was another player?
yeah, but you know yourself. I think this season, it's seasons like this that make me think I must have been a right asshole or something in a past life. Forgot to send me back as a Milan fan. I think I might.
I think Inter winning Serie A in another derby against us is probably the last record left, isn't it, for this season to somehow hit?
So would that
Breaking a lot of records.
Would that be 6 straight defeats if they beat us for Pioli, under Pioli?
I think so.
I think that's 7.
7, yeah, because it was
I think
5
it's 7.
last season, wasn't it?
That hurts even more.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah, I think it's 7.
And to add to that, we haven't been competitive in any of those derbies, especially the last 3 derbies that I remember watching. We came out flat in all 3 games. Like, we didn't care about it. It's like that game meant nothing to us, to the team, to the coaches, and nobody.
That's it.
Like, it's a derby, fella. We're playing Inter, our rival cousins, and you come out flat for 3 straight games or 4, whatever it is.
Leadership on the pitch, and we don't have any.
And who's the leader? Well, Giroud should be a leader. Mike should be a leader. Somebody should be stepping up. We can't just, now we have Ibra back. Who's that? Is that our leader right now, Ibra?
I don't know. I don't know. But I mean, going back to another point you guys discussed, I think maybe Max, you might have mentioned it, was about timing or substitutions. This is something we've been talking about for a long time. Today was a really good example, guys. Basically, Pioli waited until they scored the 3rd goal, and then he flooded the pitch on with power and with speed. I just thought, okay, at halftime, I thought, are you going to try and come back into this and win the game? We'll know at halftime because you'll do the subs. No, he didn't. What he waited for is until we went 3-1 down, panic stations, and here come the cavalry. And of course, we go back to 3-3. Very good fight back. Don't get me wrong. Nice goals. By the way, there's something I want to ask you all for your opinions. Maybe we'll start with you, Nico.
Let's start with Max. Max, our guest. Let's. I like to.
Let's start with Max. All right.
Yeah,
the Chucky offside, Max. Those very, very thin lines that were being drawn. Those white lines in the air that were being thrown. Do you think that was offside in your opinion?
Well, I think Marotta was in the VAR room, and I think his lines were a little bit skewed.
He's everywhere.
I mean, we're talking millimeters, aren't we? It's ridiculous. There's one in particular. I thought, how can he be offside? If he scored with the part of his body that's offside, it wouldn't count. It'd be a handball. I couldn't work out if it was the very top of the shoulder or the whole thing. But we're talking like millimeters, aren't we? Like Pipo Inzaghi must be kicking off somewhere at home in a cafe, watching offsides like that be given, because that's just absolutely ridiculous. But it's an automated system. Unless there is some tampering with it, I'm not saying there is, by the way, but unless there is, you've got to give it, haven't you? They've got it on a bloody screen now. So
I've got to be honest. I don't usually question offside decisions, but today, those Chucky goals, I thought that's not fair. That really doesn't seem fair to me.
The first one, I can understand, right? Just a bit. You know what I mean? Okay. I'm not arguing on if I think that if a part of his body that he can't use in open play anyway is offside, that it should be called offside. But in terms of the way that the rule is written, yeah, he was offside. But the second one, I think it's very harsh. Yeah, and it's like Nathan said, he was off by his shoulders. But even the second one, though, Nathan,
Shoulders.
Well, let's be honest. In every
I thought it was his
league,
hand for the first one.
in every league, there's been awful offside calls this whole season since VAR came.
Yeah, except
And
for Inter.
except for it, but if you look at EPL games, they're always complaining about the offsides. I think there was one referee that was reprimanded after the game for the offsides. It happens even in Greek leagues too. I know I watch some Greek soccer as well. The offsides is ridiculous sometimes, and I think if I'm not mistaken, I think they're changing the offsides rule next season.
Gio's
it's
coming
gotta-
on.
Yeah, I think it's got to be the whole body. Is that correct? Does anybody know about that? I think they're changing that next season.
Doesn't have to be a gap
I
or
have heard
something
there's a
between.
Yeah,
change.
Yeah.
yes, which makes a lot more sense. It's going to be an adjustment for a lot of teams, obviously, but there's got to be something done with the offside, because if you're off by a millimeter, that doesn't really count. That's ridiculous. Because as a
Yeah.
player, you're doing the right thing. You seem like you're on site. You're going to take away goals like that all the time.
Yeah, because it's a hard enough situation to be in anyway, because you have to beat the guy that's marking you, and if they're gonna, it's already skewed for the defensive player anyway. Do you know what I mean? Makes no sense. Gio, welcome. Hello, how are you doing?
What's going on,
How's
G?
your head?
Hey,
How's
what's
the
going
hangover?
on, man? Nah, it's good. I ain't get hangover same, man. I just want to say, like, I don't know, Serie A just doesn't want to see Chukwueze win. That second offside was total bullshit. I don't know if they was looking at his man genital area and they were like, that shit too big.
Yeah,
That shit too big. Like, I don't
Gio's in the
know. They were
house.
jealous. They were jealous. But like, I don't even know. Oh and shit. And goodbye Arsenal's title hope. 2-0. Go
Oof.
cry. Go cry
Are you
after you said
serious?
Oh,
Are you
yeah.
serious?
Yeah.
well,
After
hold on,
that,
hold on, G. Even Arsenal's losing too, 1-0 against Aston Villa in the
no,
85th.
2-0. 2-0 now, Nico.
No.
Arsenal? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who?
After you see these stupid ass Arsenal fans, I tell them,
And
stick to Premier League. Don't
they're
come over
bottling
here
it
to the
too.
broke. Don't come to the broke. When you start saying that Trossard could be Serie A's best player and that Leao is mediocre, then that's when you have a problem. But I just want to say about today's game, it was back and forth. But I've been telling everybody, it's not propaganda. Gabia right now is our best defender, whether you like it or not, whether you think he's handsome, whether you think nothing. As soon as Gabia came in, we set up shot, no goals came in. Kyer was playing with a muscle problem. This is the manager that a lot of people like defend. Stop defending it. His medical team sucks. And Pioli, my message to Pioli is help yourself. Get rid of that medical team, the physios, the recovery, and then maybe we could do something next year. But I just want to say, keep up the great work, guys. Shout out to Max. He's up in here. Legendary shit. And yeah, I'm glad that Arsenal's losing. And that's all I got to say. But
Thanks,
Chukwueze,
Gio.
man, I just want to say that Chukwueze, man, he's doing it against us odds. Pioli didn't like him. Now Serie A taking away legitimate goals. And that goal that he scored, that's just pure class off the post in. Ooh, we were going crazy at the
That was
bar,
a
yeah.
sexy goal. Yeah, nice technique.
Yeah, but I don't know. But keep up the great work, guys.
Thank you, Gio. Thank you for calling
Thanks,
in.
G.
Thanks, Gio. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that's Gio from coast to coast. Awesome that he's joined us as well. So, yeah, I mean, there's nothing much more to say about that game. The lineup was really strange. I call it a hybrid. He seemed to want to lose it and win it at the same time, and then he made some really strange decisions during the game. I am more interested now, if you don't mind, guys, to have a bit of a chat about Max.
Yeah,
Find
let's
out a
do
bit
it.
more about him.
Love
Is that
to.
all right?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
So,
Go
Max,
for it.
first of all, I'd like to know a bit more about your background and how you got into Calcio and Milan.
So my Milan calcio journey starts at 6 years old. When I realised what football was. my family have all immigrated from Sicily and Italy to England, and I have 4 grandparents which are Italian Sicilian. Both my parents are also from Sicily as well. So for me, football and calcio has always been in my life. I can't really remember a moment without football on in the background. And my dad is a massive AC Milan fan and always has been. So for me, my brother, my dad, Milan has been our passion. We've always followed the games. We've been to the San Siro. I'm lucky enough that one of my uncles lives in Milan, so we've been able to go and watch games and whatever. And for me, Milan means more than just a football club. It's everything to me. Growing up in the UK, as the son of immigrants, can be difficult sometimes. And having an outlet to watch football, a passion that involves the country I come from, is been great. It's amazing. The fact that it happens to be a 7-time European champion winner, a 19 Scudetti winning team, makes it all much better, and it's definitely made my life easier in terms of bragging rights on the school playground, as it were. That's where it starts. I'm the kid who doesn't support Chelsea, Arsenal, or anything like that. Never was any interest to me whatsoever. I've only ever supported Milan, and it can be difficult to support Milan in another country, because I'm sure you guys appreciate and understand as well. People kind of look at you a bit funny when you say you support AC Milan. What team do you support? I support AC Milan. Oh, do you? Who's that? And then you have to go into it, don't you? So for me, that's it. I've played football to a decent standard as well. I was good enough and lucky enough to have some trials for some professional teams. Unfortunately, I didn't get in. So I've played on the football pitch. I know my way around. Coaching badges, I've done a couple of those as well. So I like to think I come from an opinion and experience, not just off the top of my head. But for me, football is really important. It kind of goes hand in hand in my life, and always has done. I've always supported the Azzurri as well. I've never really supported England. Not that I will sit there and support against England, but it's Italy for me all the way, which was really difficult after the Euro win, as you can imagine, going into work the next day. That's me in a nutshell. That's my journey through culture, my love for football. That's it in a nutshell.
So Max, thanks for that. That's really interesting. I thought, first of all, your surname Lombardia, I should say. Are you from the region? That's the first thing I thought. No, actually, you're Sicilian. Your family background.
Yeah. That's not my actual second name. That's just the Twitter handle.
There you go, man.
Now we know.
There you go.
Now we understand it. So I was like, oh my God, this guy's Milan through and through. He's from the Lombardia region. Very good, Max. That's really smart, dude. That's really smart, dude.
Yeah.
Love it. So the other thing I was wondering is your co-hosts that you have on your show. Now, remind me. Sometimes you have some. Is it Gio De Blasio?
Gino De Blasio. Gino. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your co-hosts and how you met with them?
Oh, we kind of just met through Twitter, actually. I kind of put the thing out there in the feelers that I wanted to do a podcast, because although I like expressing my opinion over Twitter, I felt doing it in voice would be better, and I thought I might get some kind of following from that. And he reached out to me and said, "Oh, Max, we need to do a pod after the I think it was the Champions League draw had come out, and we were in that group." And I said, "Yeah, come along, let's have a go." And ever since then, we've kind of just formed a really good relationship. We send each other memes on Instagram. We send each other texts all the time over Twitter and stuff. And it's really natural. Me and him don't put much effort into any of it, really. He's from Naples. He's Napoletano. And he talks to me about his journey through the fact that his family's born in Naples, but he supports Milan. It's quite an interesting blend of stuff. He's got some great opinions. He knows his football as well. He's played at a good standard. So I've also had Pier Francesco on the first guest that I had, and he worked at Goal Italia a while ago. And it was really interesting to talk to him as well and understand his point of view from having been a journalist in Italy, what that looks like, and his love for Milan as well. So those are the only 2 real guests I've had on, actually. That's them in a nutshell. It's been great. I've really enjoyed speaking to them as well. It's great to just like to be on this today. It's great to speak to other people that have the same passion as you. So already you start from a base of similarity. So absolutely.
Really interesting. So the next question is, I'm going to guess that you're a fluent Italian speaker. Yes, Max?
I'm fairly fluent. Yeah, fairly fluent. Yeah.
Fairly fluent. So that being the case, what are your go-to sources of information?
Just anything, Gazzetta dello Sport, anything like that. I'm quite lucky that I can read in Italian, so I literally go into there and I can read it without having to translate it. So I can get a pretty good understanding of what they're actually saying, because sometimes translations can come out with words that don't really mean what they're saying and they're badly interpreted. And also, just my granddad, he knows everything. So I ask him and he knows everything. He can tell me everything.
That's pretty awesome. That's a pretty awesome story. Do you have a journalistic background at all, Max? I'm just curious.
I have done some writing in the past for some. Like I did some work for Milan Brothers, who is a page that's Matt Santangelo and his brother, I believe, do. And I did do some work for. It was called More Than a Game at the time, which was a kind of starting out website which covered sport, and I was able to cover things like I quite enjoyed doing old pieces like on Kaká or like the World Cup
cool.
team of 2006. I also did a piece on the AC Milan team of 2002, 2003. So I do like writing. I did enjoy it. It was a pastime. But I wouldn't say I'm not a qualified journalist of any sorts. Absolutely not.
Okay, no, that's cool. Guys, I learned a lot about Max in that little short piece there about his background, his name, his connections. That's pretty good. And his sources. I mean, on the sources bit, Max, are you of the same opinion as most of us that the Gazzetta is a little bit biased?
I think most Italian papers are biased to one team or another. I think that's just the way it works in Italy, unfortunately. Okay. Whoever's got the biggest checkbook seems to get the right thing into the right place. It's just the way it is.
I'll hand the floor over to my co-hosts for their questions.
So it's a couple of good nostalgic memories you raised there, Max, especially around the team of 0203. Great squad. So realistically, let's say our transfer budget for this year, let's say it's 100 million, and we don't have to sell anyone, right? So how realistic is it that you would think? So if we had 100 million of a budget, do you think that we will be able to pass Inter next year? Or if not, how many seasons do you think that it would take to pass Inter?
Inter have some kind of financial immunity that I'm still yet to work out how that seems to unfold every season, where they have no money, but yet they're still able to buy players and offer huge, ridiculous wages. In terms of on the field, in terms of how we set up our team with the players that we have, I think we are still a few players away from being anywhere near them. I don't want to say it's we have to get rid of Pioli to change or any of that. But in terms of a transfer market, we're desperate for a central defensive midfielder, absolutely desperate. If you watch the way that we play and the way that we're set up to play in terms of bombing forwards with a 4-5 man press, we leave our midfield, which you would have seen in some of the games. We then allow ourselves to be counter-attacked with 2 or 3 passes and they're straight into our box. So we need a player that can fulfil that space, but also play out well with the ball. The closest I can see is Adley at the moment, but we need something a bit more concrete, someone who knows what they're doing. I'm not sure how much that would cost. I'm not sure what the wages would look like. But we certainly can't afford to go pick up a random player from the French league that's only played for 2 seasons. It needs to be a player who knows how to play that position. In terms of the other money, we need that centre forward. Giroud looks like he's on his way out. I think we need 2 centre forwards. I think we need a strong backup as well. Jovic looks like he's going to get himself a renewal, but we're still missing this other centre forward to come on and score these goals. And something that I've noticed, especially in the last couple of months, is we are desperate for centre-backs as well. The way that Pioli sets his team up is to be able to play out from the centre-back position. When you've got a Chow, or you've got... I'm not saying Gabby is limited, but when you've got these players, they really struggle to play out from the back. Something that Tomori and Simon Kjaer, to an extent, are really good at is moving the ball forwards at pace. And we don't seem to be able to do it when we start to rotate the centre-back so much. So for me, I'm spending that budget on centre backs, CDMs, and a striker. If we can do that, if we can balance the team correctly, whether it's with Pioli or not, then I think we'll be a bit closer. But I think what you've seen in the derbies, or what I've seen in the derbies, is not just a team in Inter that is set up well, but a team that when it rotates or makes substitute impact them so much, they seem to have a like for like replacement in every position, and that's something that we're not quite there yet. We don't quite have that quality or that resource to be able to match them. I think we're a season or so away. But having said that, Pioli would be under huge pressure next season to win something. So let's see how that goes.
Yep. Well answered. I agree there totally. I think it's kind of hard even putting a timeline as in when do you think we could catch up to Inter, because if Inter keep going the way that they're going, it may not be a situation that we catch up to Inter. It's just Inter completely collapse because FFP is finally caught up to them. They need to sell half their team, but I can only live in hope.
Shane,
Absolutely.
gentlemen, I'd like to add something to this conversation. I don't see with Inzaghi coming back. He is staying at Inter for another season with the majority of the core players, right? So that being said, we talked about this before. They have a system in place. They believe in his system. The players all the players believe in Inzaghi's system. He's one of the most well sought out coaches in European football right now. The way he's playing dynamic football, playing new football, which is something Pioli hasn't gotten his head around yet. With that being said, even if Pioli stays or not, and we get the players that we need, it's going to take at least another two seasons, and or three, regardless, for us to compete with Inter. So I don't see as even next year with us getting a CDM, getting a new starting center back, getting a prominent striker. Say we get Zerki or anybody else, say even I don't know Balogun or whoever. It's going to take us time for us to be able to compete with Inter and possibly Juve as well.
I was just about to say that I agree with the timelines really, and the problem is every year that you give Juve a chance to consolidate and get better, Juve will get markedly better and far more quickly than Inter.
From what I'm hearing, Juve might sign Mota, and if Mota goes there, he might possibly bring Buongiorno with him, and some other players might follow. So imagine that team next season, Juve and Inter competing with us as well.
Yeah. Fair points. On that bombshell, I guess, taking Nico, I think it's time, man. Let's cut over to the defensive dynamo segment. Boom. Let's do it. All right.
So just briefly get some insight on this, Max. So just like yourself, I did play some competitive football in the United States. I did play up to third division college for like 5 games until I gave it up, being that I wasn't getting any playing time. I was just too undersized as a center back when I got to that level. And I do have a couple coaching badges, and I did coach for about 2 seasons in Phoenix, Arizona for U11. So I do appreciate having somebody else on here as well that has a similar experience, because it definitely humbles us as fans, I think, to what,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, completely agree.
All right, so this was actually a project I started about maybe a year ago, Defensive Dynamo, being that this is part of the game that I do love, a passion of mine. So Shane, John, Husney were more nice enough to invite me onto their channel a little while ago to kind of bring this project to its full potential. So let's bring up the slides. So obviously, as we noticed in this last game against Roma, if anybody hasn't noticed yet, we made the same mistakes again and again and again. So one thing that I've noticed, and actually I was mistaken a while ago, I had talked about set pieces of Milan, and I had said that they play zonal marking. I was absolutely wrong, and I apologize for that. So I did some reading up on this, and from what I understand, and breaking down this last play, let's bring up the slide here so we get a better view. All right, so this is the first piece. We see how we set up here. For everybody on Spotify, we're all man marking on top of the box. You see we have Giroud there, and we have Calabria right there. All right, everybody else is man marking, setting up, which is something Pioli's been playing since the beginning of the season. I think even during the preseason games that were played in the United States against Barca and against Real Madrid, we were playing this man marking on set pieces. Going to slide 2, we get a better view. So there's Giroud again on that near post. You have Calabria there covering another space, and you have everybody else marking the man. And you see here, I believe that's Lost Cheek on Mancini. All right. So this is what gets really interested. So at this point, Dybala is actually he's setting the corner kick. And if you notice here, there's Mancini making a run into goal. There's Lukaku right there. There's Theo. He actually takes off from Lukaku. He's covering this space as well, right behind Calabria. And there's Loftus Cheeks. So a lot of Milanista who they talked about this game blamed Loftus Cheek, saying that was his fault that this goal was scored. However, video proof states otherwise. In this case, he actually got picked off on this play, Loftus Cheek, which is something that man-to-man marking, that's like the one, I guess, fault when you're marking man-to-man on set pieces. This is where it leaves you exposed, is when other teams are going to notice that. They've done their research. Obviously, Mota has done his research, has analyzed games against us, and has realized, hey, Pioli's playing the same man-to-man marking, game in and game out. So teams adjust, as most good coaches do in teams. And Loftus Cheek got picked off. Mancini came in, and there it is. There's that fourth goal right there. There's Mancini all by himself. Theo has no idea that Mancini's behind him. Loftus Cheek is behind him because he's got picked off. And there's your first goal against Milan, and the only goal that was scored. So I'll get into a little bit more. I'll get into some other stuff in a minute, but I want to get the panels, the everybody else's view on this.
So it's very concerning. So when you line it up like that, right, and what you kind of figure out as well is that, you know, it kind of goes back to what I said about De Rossi being quote unquote green, and he still got one over on Pioli. And this kind of further backs up that. So it's very concerning, but again, it's not something that we're not used to. It's been 4 years of Pioli now?
Yeah, 4.
Yeah.
And I think I'm not 100% sure, but I'm about 95%. I think this type of defending, Pioli even the season before was playing as well. So he hasn't changed anything at all.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny because I mean, when you think about it, you know, his one of his big ideas this season was to go off and basically, you know, go without a CDM for most of the season, and maybe knowing his lack of clarity when it comes to defensive tactics, it was never going to end up in a good place.
Well, and I remember somebody saying before this game, we had height as center backs, right, in this game against Roma. It doesn't matter if you have height, because you got to remember, during our Scudetto run, who was our 2 center backs when we made that run to win the Scudetto? It was Kalulu and Tomori.
Tomori, yeah.
So you could have a 6'5" center back out there, a monster like Virgil van Dijk or whoever, or Stam, if we're going way back in Milan history of center backs. if you're playing this kind of defense, if you're not set up right, and teams have caught on to your tactics, they're going to find a way to beat it. And this is, I don't know how many set play goals we've given up. We've given up maybe, I think, the last count was 9, I think, this season. So count this one as number 10, if my math is correct.
That's it.
John and Max, I'd like to get your thoughts on this as well.
Max, you go first.
Yeah,
please.
I mean, yeah, thank you. Cheers, John. It's just disorganisation at its best, isn't it? You've absolutely nailed that. And when you've said we've done this for a few seasons now, there's nothing new. It's the same thing over and over again. Am I right in saying Pioli was a defender, wasn't he, when he was a football player?
Dude,
he was a
He
defender.
was, yeah.
He was. So hold on, this is funny. You're gonna find this funny, Max. So two episodes ago, I found Pioli's thesis that he wrote when he got his pro license in Italy. And we okay. I did some research. I was able to pull it up. And
but he didn't know he didn't know Leao then. What does it say?
dude, but his defensive, he wrote a 1-paragraph piece on defense, his thoughts on defending, Max.
Okay.
When you compare it to Allegri or to anybody else's that I read, they write they write pages, they write different schemes, how a CDM should play, how center back should play with a CBM. Pioli wrote 1 paragraph in his thesis for defending.
That's strange. Yeah, I mean, I think we've tactical setup is not ideal sometimes, is it? And I think your corner that graphic in those pictures show real clear kind of disorganisation or maybe misunderstanding of what they're trying to interpret. If the space between our 2 players that allows their 2 players to just walk in just says it all in terms of how it's set up. Me personally, I'm going to just be honest. I thought it was a Ruben Loftus-Cheek issue when I watched it the first time. So I put my hands up and I'll say I'm one of those Milanisti, definitely. But watching this and looking at this, you're absolutely right. It's some poor setup, isn't it? What's this man doing out on the far end? I guess he's watching the players on the outskirts, but there's no good, is there? That's no good.
I mean, yeah, listen, I think we don't have to be experts to make a I guess, conclusion that when something doesn't work in anything in life, sports, whatever it is, you need to change it up at some point. Regardless, you need to try something new. And this is, another, spot on Pioli's record that he's either too cocky to change things, because the best managers out in the game, the top, they will find a way to change something eventually. They may not change their philosophies on the game and the way they think about the game, but if something's not working, they will change it. Dude, even De Zerbi, who's the most positional football coach in the game right now, right? With his choreographed passing from the back, was able to change the way his style of game is Brighton plays, because he was losing so many games. So for all you Pioli lovers out there, there's Exhibit A right here.
So one of the things, obviously, I didn't see the game live, right, Nico? So I was more monitoring Italian media the day after, because one of the things I didn't get here in the UK is immediate highlights. I got beautiful highlights of all of the other teams that had English teams involved. Same as last time we discussed this. Unless we are playing against an English team, the highlights don't come in packages that are freely available, and you get a lot of rubbish. So I was following Italian media, and a lot of the Italian media basically said all De Rossi had to do was just study how Inter disassembled us and dismembered us in those games, in the last few derbies, in order to be able to understand how to do this. I would say that this is one situation, Nico, we've talked about in the past. If the ball had, this is one where Dybala just fired the ball in and we were in poor positions. But imagine if there is a second phase to this play we've seen our players flood towards the ball and leave completely empty spaces on the back post. It's a bit of a ongoing concern with the squad. And the thing that I was really interested in was in his selection of players for this particular match, and the question that was set to him as to why he selected Chow over Kier for this particular match. And his answer was that he felt that Chow was a better match for the Roma strikers. That's literally what he said. But he said that the big mistake, and again, I'm not a tactician, but this might make more sense to you. I'm literally going to relay to you what he said, which is he knew all along that Dybala was going to sit on the shoulders of our midfielders, creating a 2v3 situation. And he said that the big mistake that we had in the game was that our two centre backs were sitting against Lukaku too much instead of trying to attack and move the ball forward. Now, I heard that. I don't actually fully understand what that truly means, whether he wanted us to press much higher on the pitch and cause a lot of problems for Roma, which we clearly didn't do.
John, we don't have the speed for that. With those center back pairings in that game, they don't have the ability to do that.
But that's what he wanted them to do, Nico. That's what as I said, I listened to it in Italian and translated it straight, and I thought about it for a bit and thought, well, you knew that Dybala was going to be in that pocket. And the other question he was asked, which I want you to kind of think about, he said, can Milan play such an exciting game as Real Madrid and Man City? That was the other comparison that he was asked to do. And he said, I always take risks in the way that I set my teams up because I want my teams to attack and to put pressure on the opposition. That leaves gaps. And that's what he said, openly said, the way that I want my team to press means that we have to win a lot of balls in the midfield. Otherwise, you leave gaps. So for him to say that in the pregame, it's not like De Rossi needed much more of a template. And a lot of Italian media, the way they looked at it was actually De Rossi had the template there available to him, and it was Inter and the way that they disassembled us. And the question was, can the Roma players mimic that with the roster that they have? Thankfully, they only scored one on us, which gives us a bit of an opportunity. But again, I want to know what you guys think about some of those comments.
I'd like to hear from Max first.
What in regards to the Inter, De Rossi copying Inter?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think is De Rossi quoted in actually saying he watched Inter's win over Milan as a homework for this game. I'm sure he's quoted somewhere actually saying it.
Yeah, I heard the same thing.
Yeah,
Max,
I mean, yeah, I'm sure I did, didn't I? Somewhere, I'm sure it said it somewhere. Yeah, I mean, again, Inter smashed us 5-1, and they played exactly how we don't want them to play. They waited for us, they took the space, and then they counter-attacked us in 3 or 4 passes through that speed by pushing so high, which is what Roma did. But like you said, Roma don't have the quality that Inter has, so they had to do it in a Roma version of it. And what De Rossi, as well, as we've seen, he is actually quite a good people manager by the looks of things. He can galvanise his team to understand exactly what it is that he wants them to do. And because they'll follow him, I think, anywhere, they'll do it. So El Shaarawy playing a game of sacrificing himself for 90 minutes of running up and down, just to hold that space, just to make sure that Leão Theo had nowhere to go, says it all. And like he says, he's got that from Inter. I hope that there's not a textbook available for someone to buy to know how to beat Milan, but it seems to be counter-attack, 3 passes through the middle and you go. And the set-piece defending, we have had some issues with that. And I know there's a conversation around, is Lukaku offside or not as well in the build-up to the first goal. But again, how does that play happen? It's us allowing them too much space. They come through the parting waves and they get through into the area and they're able to push on and get that chance. And I think you'll remember, Mannion pulls an absolute amazing save where he tips it over the crossbar. But you know, there's lots of different things going on here for me. Why is it so simple to watch Inter and then beat Milan? That's a problem. And also, why is it so simple for a new manager like De Rossi, who is fairly, like you've said, green to it, who's had a spell at Salernitana? No, what was it, Spal? Where he didn't do so well. Comes into Roma, moves the team around a little bit from what was a bit of a chaotic mess left over from Mourinho. And is able to rebalance the team completely differently to the way that we played them in the first 2 games this season, and catch out a manager who should know what he's doing, who should be able to beat this Roma team. So, yeah, lots of different things going on for me. Like I can't believe that it takes a bit of analysis on an Inter video to beat Milan, but maybe that is all it takes.
And if you notice in this last game, at the beginning, I think Chow was marking Lukaku a few times, and I think it didn't work out for Chow. I mean, he wasn't beaten by Lukaku, thank God. Like Thuram, chewed up Chow in the inner game the last time. But then at some point they switched off. I think at some point at the majority of the game after that, Gabbia was marking him, which he has the ability to mark players 1v1, especially big physical strikers. And then on that point, I just see a question in the chat. So Nathan had said that, why is Giroud marking no one? So Nathan, going back to that first slide, if I showed you, we do have 2 players playing zone, right? So it's Giroud playing zone, covering that near post, and you have Calabria covering that empty space in front of the penalty area. So just the way that man marking tactic is set up right, that's the way it's actually drawn up by Pioli. That's how he wants his players. So in a sense, everybody else besides Calabria and Giroud are man marking.
Oh, sorry to cut in. So
Yeah.
it looks like something maybe not so good has happened in the Roma Udinese game. So I'm seeing a message in 2 chats. One has said that something very serious happened to Ndika, and then I'm seeing as well on another. Sorry, Nathan is just pinged saying that the match has been abandoned.
Ooh.
So that's yeah. I have to see what I can find on that. So yeah, I just got it on 2 chats. So apparently, something not positive happened with Ndika in terms of an injury, and now I'm seeing now that the match was abandoned. So
I hope it's not too serious.
Yeah,
I think he's. I'm reading he had a pain in the pitch on the pitch, and he was taken off the pitch in a stretcher.
Oh dear.
And then they've obviously called the game off. So I hope it's nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing really
His
bad.
pain in chest
That does
could be
not sound
heart or
good.
something,
Never seen that before, right? What was that? The Euro? Was a player from which country? Norway or
Oh, what's his name?
Denmark.
Denmark.
Yeah.
Okay.
Denmark?
Ericsson.
Yeah,
Had that issue on the
Ericsson,
pitch.
yeah.
Right, so it says here on the Gazzetta that he touched his chest and fell on the floor. He's been taken off on a stretcher and conscious. He was conscious, taken
Oh,
off.
he was conscious, right?
Yes.
It was just strange to say that it was abandoned.
Hopefully, it was picked up early enough.
Yeah.
I mean, so one of the things we say, obviously, we know our Kier and what he did. That's why he will always have a place in my heart, pardon the pun, but he will always be a bit of a hero for what he did and what I saw in those Euros. But one of the places where if you need assistance for something like that is definitely on a football pitch, right? Because the medics are very well trained and ready to deal with things like that. So hopefully, fingers crossed, the guy is going to make a full recovery. Let's hope.
Yeah. It's a shame.
Right. Absolutely. So I had one last question for Max, if you guys don't mind. Max?
Yeah, go for it.
What's your opinion? And I'm sorry if I'm going to bring hate your way by asking you this, but what's your opinion on the end goal of our current ownership?
What do I think they're going to do? You mean in terms of what's the plan?
Do you think they want? Yeah. Do you think they're here for the long term, or do you think they are here to just try and build what do I call it? A good business case for someone to come and buy us?
Yeah, I don't think they're here for the long term. I think they're here to. I think they're here to improve the club to begin with, bring some more stability in, like Elliot did, build a stadium, essentially increase the capital that's possible through the Milan brand. And when they get it to a certain point that they're happy with, I think they'll sell it for a profit. Personally, I know that we've got Jerry Cardinale. I know that they hide behind some quite powerful words in terms of what they say and how they say it. And I know that they are very well trained in what they say. But I can't go past the fact that it's a investment fund, isn't it, Redbird? They are known for buying things, making them better, selling them for a profit. And essentially that's what I can see happening for Milan. If we get a stadium out of it, though, and we get some better players and our team improves with it, then I haven't got a problem with that at all. But it does bring some uncertainty around who do they sell it to, what does that look like, does that put us behind? So yeah, my opinion is they're not here for the long term. I think they'll sell it. I'm more worried about what we look like after they do. Yeah, absolutely. I hope that doesn't bring hate on me, but I just don't believe. I just don't believe him. I know that sounds really horrible. I just don't believe Cardinale. He says things like, "We're here to win. We're going to compete in this and whatever." And you just think, yeah, but wouldn't any owner say that?
True.
This is very.
What have you said that's different?
Just
Very
a
What
quick
have you
one,
said that's
guys.
different to anybody
I
else?
need to just jump off a bit early.
Yeah.
Just a quick one. I just want to give a quick update. So apparently what had happened was when Dika went down clutching his chest because he collapsed, De Rossi told his players to come off, and both teams basically agreed that they wouldn't continue the game. So it's been abandoned.
Yeah, it says on the Gazzetta that the game will restart starting from the 72nd minute
Oh, wow. Okay, interesting. All right.
at
Okay.
some point. Yeah.
Anyway, you're okay to close out,
Ladies-
so yeah?
Yeah, we'll be on a
Yeah.
few more minutes. Yeah, I just got another lighter question for Max, and I'll get into.
Thanks,
another
Max.
Right,
update.
Shane.
appreciate
All the
you.
best,
See you
man.
guys.
Later, Shane.
Bye.
Thank you, Shane.
So Max, two. I have two other questions for you. One's a light question. Who's your all-time favorite Milan player?
Kaká.
Kaká. Great answer.
Kaka's my favourite player of all time. The just everything about him: speed, awareness, passing ability, strike force, aerial ability, absolute all rounder. My favourite, absolute favourite.
It's sad to see what happened with his wife. I guess she divorced him. According to the news, she divorced him because he was too perfect of a husband.
Wow.
Yeah,
you wouldn't catch my wife saying that.
No. And the second one, in terms of the stadium, do you think what do you think our chances of actually having the stadium built in the next, say, 5 to 6 years?
I think our chances are high. I do think that's one thing this management will try and get. Where it is, I'm not sure it is where they're saying it's going to be. I'm not sure whether they're going to get the capacity that they want, because Italian bureaucracy will do its thing like it always does. We know that the mayor of Milan isn't keen on it. We know that he wants to keep getting his rent from San Siro. So I think those are the barriers, the Italian bureaucracy. I think the management want it. I think eventually we will have one. I'm just not sure it will be what we're being told. It will be the 70,000 seater with all the complexes and all the hospitality and all that sort of stuff, because Italy just doesn't like it. If Juve want it, Juve managed to get it, but Milan don't seem to be able to ever get that over the board, which I'm not sure why that is. Is it Inter? Do Inter not want Milan to move across because it means they need to pay more, or they can't afford to? I'm not sure. But yeah, I do really hope and I do really think that it will happen. Just in what capacity, I'm not sure.
Well, that's a positive way to end it, Nico, isn't it?
Yes,
Some hope.
yes, it is. Being realistic.
Yeah, no.
And we have to be. Listen, we all, obviously we support the team regardless, but you have to be realistic how things they might work out for us in the next few years.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think looking at the week ahead, I think we can turn it around against Roma. I do believe we've got the squad to turn it around against Roma. They're just going to have to really go at it, as opposed to what they did in that first leg, and expect El Shaarawy to be on that flipping right wing and not be so surprised by it now that you've seen it. I just found that incredible thing for him to say. I will admit that I did not prepare for that. I did not expect that. But he said, I don't think it made much difference. Well, yeah, it blocked
Of
your
course
right,
it did.
it
Of
blocked
course
your
it did.
wing. Really, really incredible. But I hope that we've got enough quality that we'll be able to turn that match around. Because I know, Max, in your podcast, you say that, like a lot of us, you believe that Pioli's going to stay now. That's the decision that management is most likely to make. But I do wonder if going out of Europa League at this phase and getting beaten by Inter Milan might reverse that. I wanted to know, what do you think of that? Is he going to stay no matter what? Do you think?
I think for me it's two questions. It's twofold. So, if we are knocked out of the Europa League in the quarterfinals against what is objectively a worse team than ours,
Mm-hmm.
we reached second, so we qualify for the Champions League, but we never really competed for the league. We were knocked out of the Coppa Italia early as well. I see that as a failure. I'm not sure
Mm-hmm.
what other people think, but I see that personally as having spent a lot of money in the summer as a failure. Um, Whether the ownership decides to get rid of him or not, whether they'll foot the bill for his wages on top of somebody else's, because we know he won't leave. We know that he will not leave. It's very clear he won't be going anywhere. So they'd have to sack him. Do I think they'll sack him? No, I don't think they will.
Wow.
I don't think they will because I can't see it. We've lost how many derbies in a row? Last season we had an absolute horrendous season apart from the Champions League, where we came fifth. And he didn't lose his job then, so why would he lose it now? I can't see it. I think he'll be here next season, and like I said, the pressure mounts, the pressure ramps up, the fans' expectations increase. Can he handle it? I don't think so, but let's see what happens.
Interesting.
And Max and John, the big question is, even if they wanted to get rid of Pioli, Pioli's got another year in his contract, right? Are they willing to pay two contracts? And who would the other coach be in terms of a coach that would come in and actually improve the squad?
They're not going to do it. They're not
Exactly,
going to do it. You're not going to pay Pioli. Was it $4.5 million a season?
Yeah, that's
And
right.
then let's be honest, a good established manager is going to cost you what, 6, 7 at least. It's
At
not.
least,
It's not going to happen unless they've got like I've heard a Sari on the back low from some weird journalists about potentially Maurizio Sarri coming across, and they're going to pay him
Whoa.
less or whatever. Maybe, but again, I still don't see it.
Okay. Well, I would be, as you've just said, I see finishing second with such a massive gap to Inter as an enormous failure. I see losing the derby, potentially losing Serie A in the derby, would be an enormous failure of proportions that I have not experienced since probably that Champions League final against Liverpool. In terms of humiliation, I think it would feel the same to me. And going out in Coppa d'Italia, going into the Champions League in the awful way that we did, I can't see it. But I've been saying since what, Nico? November?
at least,
You know,
yeah.
now is the time to get rid of, because you might be able to rescue your Champions League campaign, but they didn't do it, and then we fell out of everything. So maybe you're right, Max. Maybe you're right. Maybe they're just kind of thinking numbers. 4.5 million, not going to cover it. Plus bringing in a new manager, I just won't do it. But yeah, thanks for your opinion. I just wanted to know what it was on that. And Nico, you got any more questions, or are we ready to
No.
wrap up?
We'll wrap it up. I just say get ready for another season of Pioli Bowl.
Well, you're going to have lots of content, man.
A lot of content for sure.
Yeah.
Thanks, Pioli, for that. Appreciate it.
So it just just leaves me to thank everyone that joined. Nathan, Christian, Gio. If anyone I've missed online, thank you all for enjoying this particular podcast. Max, thank you for joining us. This is part of our kind of ambition, is to bring in more hosts from other channels, not even just Milanista. We want to have conversations. We're just open to have conversations with people because we want to know opinions. So Max, if you've got contacts, please send them our way, and we'll be more than happy to bring them on.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, please subscribe to Max's podcast. As I said, I'm a subscriber. I've been a
Me
subscriber
too.
for a while.
Great podcast. One of my favorite ones.
And
Thank you, guys.
Forza Milan, everyone, and let's beat Roma. Come on, guys.
Let's go. All right.
Forza
Thanks again,
Milan.
guys.
Forza Milan.
Forza
Thank you,
Milan.
bye. Bye.
Take care.
Italia!